Hi guys, my name's Emma and let's talk spooky stuff. Okay, the hat is just to play into the title. I'm not going to wear it the whole time. I don't need those kind of comments. So I'm back again with my top of the decade list. You guys highly requested that I did the 90s, and if you know anything about what kind of movies I love the 90s, everything about the 90s in fact, not just the horror movies. But I have to admit, it was really interesting for me going through year by year, and there's some years where I don't feel like there was any substantially life-changing, epic horror movies out. I know that's really hard to say, but I did find good ones from every year, but I just think that there's a couple of years that I was very surprised. I didn't feel like anything happened, and then a couple of years where all of the good movies came out at once. So I have to say, disclaimer, I could only choose one. I did cheat a little bit, but one for each year. So if I don't mention something, it's not because I hate the movie. I keep getting those comments. It's not because of that. It's just really hard. Again, this is my personal preference, and hopefully you'll find some cool movies along the way that you may need that extra push to watch. As always, I will include a hidden gem of every single year. So not only will you get like a favorite that may be popular, but you'll get a movie that is less known, more underrated. Most of these are known because I found going through the 90s, a lot of those films have obviously been around for a long time. So let's get into it. If you do want me to do the 80s though, I have completely changed my mind now going through the 90s and realizing so many movies came out late 80s that I love. So if you do want me to do another one of these and do the 80s, let me know. I have done 2010s through to 2019 and of course the 2000s, and I will link them down below if you want to watch them first. And last thing, I do standardize these lists by using IMDb. You just have to pick one to go with so that they say horror in each title, but we'll get into that. Because I may have cheated just once, but we'll talk about it. But let's start in the year of my birth, 1990, which was not a hard pick for me at all because one of my favorite horror movies of all time that just happens to be in my birth year is Misery. Based on a Stephen King novel, a famous author is rescued from a car crash in a blizzard by his #1 fan. But what starts off as a rescue ends in a hostage situation when his #1 fan reads his plans to kill off her favorite fictional character. Kathy Bates won an Oscar for her role in this film. I absolutely love it. I watch it at least once a year, and if you haven't seen Misery, do it. My underrated gem from 1990, you probably have already heard or seen, but it's still wildly unrated, wildly untame. It is the sci-fi horror comedy FRANKENHOOKER. After a tragic lawnmower accident, a man sets out to recreate his fiancée by Frankensteining her body back together with local sex workers. This really does say it all, and fun fact, this is actually my fiancé's favorite horror movie. He doesn't like horror too much, but it's his favorite horror movie, and I'm just realizing that it's about a fiancé, and I'm a little bit scared now. Keep the lawnmowers away. Okay, I said I cheated, and now I'm gonna have to admit to you guys, I am very strict on keeping it horror as what IMDb says. I know IMDb isn't always accurate, but I needed to keep something that would standardize all of the subgenres. And I have to say, on this film, I don't know if it's exactly horror. I feel like there's a huge debate if people think it's horror or if they think it's a thriller. But it's one of my favorite films of all time, and I just couldn't talk about 1991 without mentioning The Silence of the Lambs. As I said, I still don't know where I stand with this film being horror, but one thing it is terrifying. This is the complex story about Clarice, an FBI trainee who was put on a case to extract information from the infamous killer Hannibal Lecter. This movie is terrifying, it is perfect, and it just gets my vote in every genre. Even if it's not in that genre. I promise that's the only one I cheated on though. And for my underrated gem, although it's quite popular, I don't think it gets the recognition it deserves, and that's The People Under the Stairs. Written and directed by Wes Craven, The People Under the Stairs is about a break-in gone wrong when the thieves discover the homeowner's wild way of life. This movie is strange and surprisingly disturbing. I love the idea of mixing what you think is kind of a drama thriller story, like a break-in, with horror and just chucking this whole different element in. It's probably the reason I really like the movie Don't Breathe as well. Interesting fact about this story is Wes Craven wrote it after reading a news story about a break-in. When authorities arrived, the thieves had disappeared, but they had discovered locked doors with noises coming from behind. Children had been locked up inside these rooms by their parents, parents and never allowed to go outside. The truth is always more disturbing. 1992, this is an easy one, and this is a horror, and this is one of the best horror movies you can watch. It's Dead Alive, also known as Brain Dead. Peter Jackson's horror comedy Brain Dead is a kooky adventure. It's about a young man who lives with his overbearing mother, and things get worse when his mother is bitten by a monkey rat after visiting the zoo. This causes her to die and come back to life in the least ideal way. The practical effects for this film are some of the best I've ever seen. Jackson takes you inside his imagination and is equal parts horrifying and mesmerizing. Underrated gem. I'm not sure if this counts as underrated, but it's definitely a gem, and I did review this one last year. It was the first time I ever watched it, and that's BRAM Stoker's Dracula. Legendary director Francis Ford Coppola teams up with writer James V. Hart for a campy, dramatic retelling of Bram Stoker's classic tale. Starring Gary Oldman, Winona Ryder, Anthony Hopkins, and Keanu Reeves, the theatrics are one thing, but the amazing costume and makeup just never leaves you. For 1993, I picked a beautiful film, CRONOS. Directed and written by fantasy master Del Toro, this Mexican horror film is about a mysterious device that claims to offer its possessor eternal life. As expected, the attention to detail in this film is phenomenal, and the actual devices themselves were all stolen on set after the film wrapped. So Del Toro doesn't even have an original device. He only has a replica, so they were pretty sought after. My underrated gem for this year has to be Carnosaur. I'm kidding. I'm sorry. It's not Carnosaur. It is Trauma. This is one of the only Argento films directed in the United States, and this giallo horror mystery thriller is about a woman who is a witness to a murder, and she tries to catch the killer before they catch her. We're on to 1994, and this is one of my favorites by John Carpenter because of that bicycle scene. I just can't get out of my head. If you know, you know. It's In the Mouth of Madness. In this twisted ride, an insurance investigator takes a journey to the end of the earth to find a famous writer who has disappeared. But not everything is as it seems when his famous book appears to be more than just a work of fiction. Okay, I know I hadn't cheated yet with doing two, but we gotta mention Interview with the Vampire. My second top film of 1994 is directed by Neil Jordan. The film stars Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise, and a young Kirsten Dunst. In this film, a vampire tells a 200-year-old tale of their life, love, loss, and betrayal. This gothic vampire film is a favorite of the subgenre. My underrated gem for this year is a quirky little film that I know you guys love, and that's Cemetery Man. This morbid, quirky Italian film is about a man who works in the cemetery, and he communicates with the dead by giving them a final resting place. This movie is based on the novel
Della morte dell'amore.
And it has a strange yet infectious charm to it. For 1995, my personal favorite film of this year is Habit. This is a multi-layered story that I believe is overlooked. In this film, the lead, Sam, who is suffering from substance abuse, finds comfort in a mysterious woman named Anna. But things take a turn when Anna becomes his new addiction and her past is revealed. This movie is a heart-wrenching tale of addiction and abuse. It's dark, depressing, and grungy, and it offers a whole new perspective. My underrated gem for this year is Mute Witness. It's a simple story, and I don't think it's perfect by any means, but it's just a movie I always come back to. Mute Witness is about a mute makeup artist who is working on the production of a slasher film when she witnesses a real-life murder. The movie is set and filmed in Russia. Fun fact, it was originally set in Chicago, but the director changed the location to save money. In my opinion, the relocation provides an extra layer to the film. 1996, this is when the 90s started getting good. And this is why I've chosen two, but when you see the two I've chosen, you'll totally understand why. The first is, of course, I'm sure you've guessed it, Wes Craven's Scream. This one needs no introduction, but just in case, the film follows Sydney, a young woman who is the target of a masked killer known as Ghostface. The film is written around the idea of bravery, fighting back, and of course, all those horror tropes we've come to kind of hate love, I guess. I'm a huge fan of Scream, but mostly because of Gale Weathers, who I love because she is equally parts badass and flawed. And next, I have to mention, I couldn't go through 1996 without saying The Craft. it's still a personal favorite. I love it just as much as Scream. This drama horror fantasy is about a group of misfits who start their own coven, but with power comes great responsibility and everything comes back ×3. I love this interpretation of good versus evil because it shows when push comes to shove, it isn't that cut and dry. My underrated gem for this year is another Argento flick. It is the Stendhal Syndrome. This one is dark. The film is about a policewoman whose mind and life is tormented while tracking down a serial killer she has become the target of. Stendhal Syndrome, also known as Florence Syndrome, is a real-life condition involving rapid heartbeat, fainting, confusion, and even hallucinations. This allegedly occurs when individuals have become exposed to objects or phenomena of great beauty. 1997. I'm so happy with this. If you don't like the 90s, you'll want to stop watching now because this one is ultimate 90s. What are you waiting for? Just picture me spinning around saying that. This is I Know What You Did Last Summer. Jennifer Love Hewitt, Freddie Prinze Jr., Sarah Michelle Gellar, and Ryan Phillippe. Name a more iconic group. Sorry, I just had to. Sure, this film is artificial and cheesy, but damn do I love it. In this film, a group of teenagers try and cover up a horrific accident, but a year later it comes back with the intent to kill. And because I made you sit through my love affair with that film, the next one is truly underrated, and it's a film that you guys bring up to me all the time. It's Perfect Blue. This Japanese anime is stunning and uncomfortable. We follow a recently retired pop singer who is in the pursuit of becoming an actress. But the hoops she jumps through carries how the world perceives her, and slowly she loses grasp of who she is. This is a film that needs multiple watches because it is a lot to take in, and I don't recommend anime usually to you guys, but I recommend this one to any horror fan. The 90s and cheesy horror movies, they go together so well, and you guys didn't get off that easy because it's 1998, and guess what came out that year? A very satisfying yet cheesy slasher teen flick, The Faculty. Selma Hayek, Josh Hartnett, Clea Duvall, Elijah Wood, and Usher star in this 90s staple film about a group of students that begin to believe that their teachers are aliens. I'm personally just so glad we got a 90s teen slasher alien crossover. It's exactly what the 90s was missing. Okay, and I'm gonna quickly go over the next one because I know that this is definitely my own opinion. I don't think many people share it, but I really do believe an underrated gem of this year has to be I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. Everyone unsubscribes. Okay, I know this one is less of a gem and more of a guilty pleasure in my humble opinion, and only my humble opinion, but it was just a good time. After winning a vacation to a tropical island, Julie, played by Jennifer Love Hewitt, and Carla, played by Brandy, yes, the Brandy, must defend themselves against a fisherman who is back for blood. Of course, Freddie Prinze Jr. shows up again, but the most iconic role of this film goes to Jack Black, who plays the most annoying stoner of all time. And just like that, it's already 1999, and we're gonna go out with a bang because the next one divides audiences. People either love it or completely hate it. But let's agree to disagree today because I stand with the Blair Witch Project. Famous for its misleading marketing, the Blair Witch Project relaunched found footage and showed us less really is more. The film follows 3 film students who travel through a forest making a documentary about a local legend, the Blair Witch. And whether you like this film or not, it helped shape modern horror. It also made the Guinness Book of World Records for box office ratio, since the film cost an estimated $60,000 and returned $248 million. That's $1 roughly for every $10,931 made. And we're gonna finish off with 2 underrated gems for this year, and they are very different. The first has to be Stir of Echoes. It is just a film I always go back to. The perfect combination of thriller, mystery, and horror. In this one, Tom, played by Kevin Bacon, begins to see haunting visions of a girl, and he becomes obsessed with finding answers. Something about this film is just highly satisfying, and I have to say it's probably the end. If you haven't seen it, I'll say no more, go watch it. The last film I have to mention in the 90s is Idle Hands. This zany, off-the-wall horror comedy stars Devon Sawa, Jessica Alba, and Seth Green. In this teen slasher, Anton discovers part of him is a killer. His right hand. It cannot be controlled as it sets off on a wild, murderous adventure. And there you have it, guys. That is the best of the 90s, in my opinion, from every single year. Of course, I wanted to pick more, but I had to limit myself. I hope this list was helpful. If it was, please let me know if you want me to do an 80s one, because I'd be very happy to do that. And also, some of you horror fans may have noticed I did not include The Exorcist 3 in this, and a lot of people really love this movie. But I have to admit, I've never actually seen it, even though I'm a huge fan of the original Exorcist. I know it's very different to the first two, but if you would like me to do a review watching The Exorcist 3 for the first time, also let me know down below. If you guys want it, I will definitely record my reaction because I feel like it's a long time coming. Anyway, thank you guys so much for being here. I do 2 new videos every single week about horror and horror topics. So if you'd like to subscribe, please do, and I'll see you guys very soon. Stay spooky. Bye.